Hi all, this is Saya again with a more detailed overview of the syntax and functionality available with item filters in general. We'll be looking at this in both Filtration and Notepad++. While it's considerably easier for most people to write and edit scripts in Filtration, it helps to understand the underlying mechanics first, which I'll explain in technical terms for those who have some experience with coding as well as more quotidian terms. Let me start with a disclaimer that I have no idea how the client actually interprets the filters, so the following explanations are from a surface functionality and behavior perspective only. I'd like to thank Davros70, Antony, and AdamYCX for the time and effort they've put into providing explanations and tools to facilitate item filter creation for the entire community. Before we get into details, let's establish some basic terminology. A line is the smallest meaningful element of an item filter. It provides either a condition to check or instructions to be carried out. A block is a group of lines beginning with show or hide that applies to the same type of item. A section is a group of related blocks with a similar purpose. For example, all blocks pertaining to the display of currency. In addition, it's important to note that filters are case sensitive and require some white space to function. While the number of spaces or tabs prior to each line will not affect anything other than readability, you must have a new line at the end of each line. Item filters are lazy. They behave like a giant switch statement on each item, checking the conditions and, if appropriate, setting attributes, then quitting. That is, each item runs through the filter from top to bottom and checks the conditions which trigger each block. If it matches a block, it applies the display attributes to the item and stops looking at the rest of the script. Because of this, it's critical to pay attention to the order of your blocks. For example, this would end up hiding all unique flasks, while this functions as intended. At the heart of understanding the item filter is understanding these conditions and attribute changers, set functions, or setters. Each of them takes a certain number of arguments, or amount of information, some of which are optional. Some also have a variety of operators, things like equals, less than, greater than or equal to, that affect how the conditions are applied. Most conditions perform a numerical comparison, including rarity, which is why you can say things like rarity less than rare, and the filter will correctly determine that this means normal and magic items. These numerical attributes include quality, rarity, sockets, linked sockets, drop level, item level, height, and width. These may each have up to 2 lines in a block. For example, linked sockets less than 6 and linked sockets greater than 3 on separate lines will return 4L and 5L items. Non-numerical attributes, class, BaseType, and socket group may only have 1 line each per block. Numerical conditions may use the following operators: equals, less than, greater than, less than or equal to, and greater than or equal to. If there is no explicit operator, like the phrase rarity unique, it is treated as equals, or rarity equals unique. Note that there are no negated operators or conjunctions. Rarity not equal to normal, normal less than rarity less than unique, and similar comparisons will give errors. Conjunctions may be simulated with 2 separate lines, rarity greater than normal, and rarity less than unique. The equals operator may take multiple right-hand operands. That is, rarity equals normal magic, or even just rarity normal magic are valid conditions that will act as expected. However, these will parse incorrectly in filtration if you use multiple right-hand operands with the equal sign on a numerical condition. So if you're manually writing your filter, be careful and avoid that. This is most useful for class and base type. If you just want jewelry, you can write class, amulets, rings, belts on the same line in a single block, instead of creating separate blocks for each, and this filtration handles just fine. Note that conditions with multiple operands on the same line are treated as OR. Rarity equals magic rare will match any item that is magic or rare. Class amulets rings will match any item which is either an amulet or a ring. Multiple conditions in the same block are treated as AND. Rarity equals magic and rarity equals rare will match nothing, because no item is both magic and rare. Rarity equals rare and item level greater than or equal to 60 will match all potential chaos recipe rares, for example, but nothing else. Most of these conditions are straightforward. Details may be found in Davros's Guide to Item Filters, linked below. I will note the most common points of confusion. Socket group matches linked sockets by color, so socket group RGB will match any item that has a red, green, and blue socket linked, even if there are additional sockets in the linked group. Order does not matter. Socket group BGR will match the same items as socket group RGB. Some classes of items, such as currency and divination cards, do not have a rarity, and so will naturally be excluded from any block that specifies a rarity. This also applies to sockets and quality. Specifying either will automatically exclude anything which cannot have the stated attributes, like gems if you specify sockets, or quivers if you specify quality. Drop level is the minimum level required for a base or item to drop. This is usually, but not always, the required level shown on a white base. Exceptions include things like unset rings, which are usable at level 5 but do not drop that early. Now that you know how to specify exactly what items you want to modify, let's look at what you can change about item drops. There are 5 different types of functions given to make changes. Most of these are set functions, or setters, which set a specific attribute of an item, such as font size or text color, to the value you specify. Set text color, set border color, set background color, set font size. There also is play alert sound. Note that color always uses the American spelling, with one O and no U. Each of these takes one or more arguments or pieces of information, some of which may be optional. All color values, including alpha, or transparency, range from 0 to 255. An alpha value of 0 is fully transparent, while an alpha value of 255 is fully opaque. Set font size may take values from 18 to 45. 32 is the default. Values below 18 or above 45 will not generate errors, but will also not further change the font size. There are 9 alert sounds. Volume may be set from 0 to 100. Note that this is multiplicative with the sound effects slider in options. If your sound effects are low, you're unlikely to hear the alert sounds even if their volume is set to 100 in the filter. Each of these attributes should be set only once per block. Listing set text color twice doesn't make any sense. A complete list of classes may be found in Davros's guide. Note that, unlike other classes, daggers, claws, amulets, jewel, and divination card are singular. When specifying classes and base types, additional care must be taken with the tokenization of the listed values. In other words, multi-word classes and base types should be enclosed in quotes. When parsing a line like class daggers, one hand swords, values, called tokens, are split by spaces. That is, this line will check to see if your item matches daggers, then one, then hand, and finally swords. In order to force the parser to ignore spaces and treat one-hand swords as a single class, add quotes, as like this. Now, the search tokens are daggers and one-hand swords. While one-hand swords will match only one-hand swords and thrusting one-hand swords, without quotes it matches one-hand swords, thrusting one-hand swords, one-hand axes, one-hand maces, two-hand swords, two-hand axes, and two-hand maces. Adding quotes to daggers does nothing, as daggers is itself already a single token. This partial matching is also responsible for another common error with Marikath weapons. Base type Psi will match size, but will also match saintly chainmails, saints' hauberks, and mosaic kite shields. Specifying class dagger as well as base type Psi will fix the issue. It can also be seen when people confuse classes and base types. If you want to match maps only, use class map. Base type map will match maps, because things like Dune's map include map in the base, but it will also match maple round shields. So watch your classes, base types, and quotes. You can use this partial matching to your advantage if you want to write a shorter line to match things. For instance, if you really do want all one-hand maces, one-hand swords, one-hand axes, thrusting one-hand swords, two-hand axes, two-hand maces, two-hand swords, you can just write hand, and it will grab all of those. So, with filtration, you really don't need to worry about things like that, but if you are committed to writing your script in text, it can be useful. That should cover the mechanics of item filter syntax. Now, let's look at creating editing filters in Filtration. Instead of working line by line like we do in text, filtration works on a block by block level. Numerical conditions may be set by clicking on them, selecting an operator, and selecting the desired value for comparison. Socket group, class, and base type allow you to list a number of values with autocomplete available. Item appearances may be adjusted by either clicking on the item preview or clicking Switch to Appearance block items. Sections may be added to help group your blocks logically. The section browser allows you to quickly jump to the first block of any section. Replace colors lets you change all instances of a single color at once instead of navigating to each block and changing them individually. Themes allow you to label and group colors so that other users can quickly customize item appearances without changing the overall structure of the filter. For example, I've released a default theme with my filter, which can be quickly edited for small changes. But I may end up also developing a colorblind theme in the future, so that people who are colorblind can use my filter, quickly just apply the other theme, and be ready to go. Some features in filtration currently only work if you're using a filter that's already added support for them via specialized comments, such as the block group browser. This allows filter creators to tag similar blocks so they can be shown or hid as a group with a single click. Note that this does not disable the block, but switches show to hide. If you want to completely ignore the items specified by a block, there are enable and disable block options in the ribbon. Again, you have to be careful with this. For instance, if I disable my Show Uniques block, some unique flasks will be hidden by the subsequent flask handling blocks. This, for instance, would hide divination distillate. If you're converting a text-based filter to work with filtration, there are a couple of things to be aware of when making the switch. Most of these shouldn't apply unless you're already doing something bizarre, but just in case, here we go. Any of the conditions mentioned earlier, most of which are limited to 2 lines, some of which are limited to 1, will only be loaded up to that maximum in filtration. If you are listing more, it won't let you add them. For audio-visual block items, which is how filtration treats any color changes or play alert sound, it will use the last item in a block. So if you do list set text color twice, it'll completely ignore the first one and only migrate in the second one. The only issue which I found when shifting my script to be primarily filtration based was an earlier thing that I've mentioned about equals operators taking multiple right-hand operands. If you use something right now, it's on a single line, like rarity equals normal magic. Before switching to filtration, you should shift that to 2 lines, rarity equals normal, rarity equals magic. If for some reason you're using 3, rarity, magic, rare, unique, please just switch it to rarity greater than normal for everyone's sanity, including your own. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you found this helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to message me either on the POE website or on Reddit. If there's enough interest, I may host a stream where I can answer questions about specific item filters or things not covered in this video. Again, if you'd be interested in that, just let me know on either website, especially if you have any specific questions that you would like to be answered. Thanks!